5 years, or 4 or 5 years, we get to vote in a general election, vote for one crowd or another, whole mix of policies. And the idea that we have direct say over how we're governed, I think, is a falsehood. We don't have direct say. I think there ought to be facilities whereby, for all the major decisions that society takes, the people as a whole have direct say. Just give you 2 examples where there should have been direct say, in my view. One was on the bank guarantee that was given in September of 2008, and the other was on the EU-IMF deal. I think the people as a whole ought to have had a direct say on this, because it's going to affect them for generations.
I'm not sorry I asked that. How about you, Muireann? What kind of country do you want to see after? Well, it won't happen after the election of Vincent Browne, but in all truth.
Well, first I just want to say
the possibility of getting the economy going and getting the growth, but none of the parties are willing to do that. So that's a huge barrier, and until that barrier is out of the way, I don't see much prospect for getting a revival of the economy or revival in jobs.
Okay, well, what we wanted to...
Very alternative to what's being offered. I think it's important for everyone to know everything that's out there. 2 of the things, I guess, that would be the most controversial, perhaps, and important to consider is I'm proposing a dual currency system for Ireland, where we would work with the euro and also have an independent internal only use currency. This is something that I've talked about with Konstantin Georgiev, and although he doesn't endorse it, he doesn't know enough about it, he has said that it does need more investigation and debate. Another thing that I'm proposing is the establishment of 3 nuclear energy, because 3 nuclear energy facilities.
10 seconds.
And the most important thing I wanted to tell you tonight is not the proposals, but that your vote is important. It's important for you to see what candidates are out there and see what they're talking about and do a little investigation for yourselves.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Michael Loftus. I'm 32 and I'm from Finglas. I'm part of the New Vision here this evening. The reason why I'm running, is that I bought a house back in 2007 at 100% mortgage. I was made unemployed in 2009. I've been in and out of work since, in bits and pieces. I get people are hurling in from the ditch saying, "Oh, giving out." I decided to do something about it and put myself in front of the people. The policies I'm running within New Vision are that we need to separate the sovereign debt and the bank debt. We need to restructure the debts completely and to negotiate the EU part, because the IMF part cannot be negotiated. In relation to the reform of government, local government and the civil service, that needs to be done, and as a matter of urgency. We need a stable and a good job creation strategy which will make and retain jobs. And then the final one is that we are running as a unit in respect to our national resources. Our resources have been given away for little and nothing.
Okay. Dylan Haskins.
Well, I'm running because I think it's extremely important that my generation is represented in the Dáil. At the moment, 70% of TDs are over the age of 50, and yet the decisions that they're going to make are going to affect my generation and young people more than anyone else. So I think it's extremely important that we have a say. I think we need a change in political culture, and that the only way that that's going to happen, it's not by pledges from people who've been a part of the culture that needs to be changed. It's by a different type of person standing for office. So I began running my campaign, as I intend to continue running my office, by being completely transparent as a politician. I published all of my income and all of my expenditure. I'm not legally required to do so, but I'm doing so because I think it's right. And that's how the example that I intend to set. And to raise the standard for what people can expect of a politician, and that's the only way we'll restore faith in politics.
Okay, Nick Crawford.
Good evening, Nick Crawford is my name, and I'm running in Dunleary. I was one of the founder members of New Vision, and basically the reason we set up is that we were fed up with spoof, spin and waffle and the usual tripe from all the parties that are out there. We decided that there's definitely a movement towards independence in Ireland, and I think it's super here tonight. I don't know how many hundred people are here, but the interest in what is happening in Ireland and that people haven't lost faith in the system. last night, the leaders' debate, it was kind of ironic that it was Valentine's night, and I don't know if everybody else agrees, but I didn't see any passion. And what we need is politics with a passion. It's very important that everybody here, if you're seriously interested in Ireland, that you get the message out. The vote is the most powerful tool you have.
10 seconds.
And everybody out there should use it. And if they want change, they should vote for independence, no matter where they're from. They should vote for independence countrywide.
All right, let's go to the audience. Anybody got questions? Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
You weren't ready for 1 minute, we weren't ready for 100 billion debt. So I suggest we say no to the banks, we use the 4 or 5 billion a year and we invest in the likes of the Spirit of Ireland, creating jobs, helping people out with their mortgages. What's all your stances on the likes of Spirit of Ireland, renewable energy, and helping people with their current mortgage problems and negative equity?
Anybody wants to reply to that? One person reply. Yeah, okay, yeah, you go ahead.
Well, I think renewable energy is important, but I think we need immediate answers. And right now, I think that a very solid proposal for Ireland is 3 nuclear facilities, for the reason that it's carbon-free, it's green. By doing so, we would cut out all the expenses of the carbon credits that are going to pile on us. We also currently import €6 billion of energy a year. By having nuclear energy up and running quickly, we can cut out 75% of that, keeping €4 billion a year inside the Irish economy. By undertaking the 3 projects immediately, we would generate massive employment. Between the 3 of them, you're talking nearly 100,000 jobs.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to reply to that question? No. Okay. Let's go to another question.
I'm from Upstart, and we've got some posters around the stage and in the corridor. And it's actually a question for Dylan. What do you feel is the role of the arts, creativity in economic, political systems, and how do you think that they can enhance what we do?
Well, my own background is in the creative sector. I set up Exchange Dublin in Temple Bar, which is a volunteer-run and collectively run arts and social centre for young people predominantly, but well, used by young people predominantly, but for all ages. I'm also on the board of Project Arts Centre, which is one of the leading arts organisations in the country. So I think the reason I was attracted to the creative sector is because I looked, when I was at a young age, I looked at the political culture. I saw the youth wings of the political parties. They were full of guys, and they were full of guys who were just wanted to be politicians. I was never interested in wanting to be a politician. I was interested in how to put my politics into practice and how to actually make things happen. I found that the best way to do that was through the arts and in the creative sector. So I think that we can learn a lot about problem solving, because essentially what creativity is problem solving. Okay. And we certainly need a lot more imagination in government also.
Okay. Somebody there right beside you.
Yeah, Ken, 2 quick questions for the panel. First question is, you're all independents. Under the current whip system, unless you have a technical group of 7 or more, you get very little speaking time. Even if you have a technical group, only the leader of the group gets any speaking time. So what are your views on how you can be actually effective in the Dáil if elected? And the second question, well, as everybody's talking about reform and the money that is paid to our politicians and things, as if any of you is elected as an independent, you'd be entitled to a leader's allowance of circa 50k. Would you accept the 50k leader's allowance, or would you give a pledge not to take that money?
Okay, Michael. Thank you. Michael,
I wouldn't take the 50,000. I would leave it or give it to charity. I believe that a leader of a technical group, we're fighting on the principle of why we're there. We're not there for going there for the sake of being a career politician. That's not the reason why I'm running. I'm running because I want to make things better for the country that I grew up in, and for my children, and for the people coming behind us. That's the reason for that. In relation to a technical group, there is clout there. If we pull a technical group together, we can push, we can ask the hard questions and hold the government to account. Or why can't we be a part of the government either, trying to make change? It's all open now at this stage.
Okay. I can't see anybody else want to ask a question. Yeah, in front.
council or an Oireachtas debate, have you actually went in and see how it works? What leaders' questions is like also?
I'll answer that. I was in the Oireachtas Committee on rent reviews because I stood up as an estate agent, the only man in the industry, and talked about the madness of the upwards-only rent review. And John Corcoran and myself set up the Craftsman Street Traders Association, so I was involved in that. But I would say, if you're asking basically have got political experience, it's the government that has just left has had 14 years of political experience, probably the most experienced ministers in the state, and they've ruined this country. So what we really need is what we have here is new blood. And if I could just ask who dictate to the rest, and this is what happens in Irish politics, is those people rule the table and the whip system sends it back down the line. So it is not democracy. And what we have with Independents, if we all group together, if there's more than just New Vision, we will have to talk to everybody to find out what democracy, what the people on the ground really want on various issues. And that's real democracy.
Okay.
It's not from the boardroom table back down.
Okay, somebody else in the front here.
I'm not a member of a political party, but I am a socialist. And, I'm not here to defend Joe Higgins, but he is the only one defending the country at the moment in Europe, and he's the Socialist Party. The question getting away from Dáil reform is where we're at now. They're talking about this bailout and burning the bondholders. What would you do if you were in that position?
Well, I think we can't get away from Dáil reform because, well, I mean, I think it's the gap between our tax revenue and our public spending is linked, I suppose, to how our public institutions are functioning, or rather unfunctioning, or not functioning. There's a huge amount of waste throughout the public sector. There's a lot of people on the front line that are doing excellent jobs, but there's also, I think we need to establish a procurement agency to go through the books of every single public institution and say, why are you sourcing this from there? Yeah, well, it is the headlines, and it's on the headlines.
Yeah, well, just answer the question.
Yeah, well, I think we do need to renegotiate because it's the same with any loan. The same with any loan that if you can't repay a loan, you set terms that are repayable with the bank. Otherwise, there's absolutely no point. It's what restructuring is all about, and I think we have to do it. Otherwise, we will default because we can't afford the current terms. But I think we will be defaulting regardless if our country goes bankrupt, which we will if we don't close the gap between our tax revenue and our public spending, which is the point that I was trying to make at the beginning.
Okay, anybody else want to ask that? You want to ask this?
Yeah, I think that, Ireland as a nation, we have to be responsible for the debts that are, how would you say, justifiable. I think that we have to have a team of people put together that go through the finances right back to 1997 and segment everything into what we would consider that was spent justifiably on the nation and what we would consider to be partially odious debt. And we could refuse to pay anything that we consider to be odious. I think another thing that's very important at this stage is we have to deal with the present. That's going to take time to do. And we have to find solutions to the financial problems now. And what I'm proposing is that we look at the possibility of having a second internal currency, an internal-only currency. Now, this is something that is kind of an abstract thought, but it's not really. It's been done before. And I think that we have enough sharp minds in this country that we could put something like this together. The benefits of that is that instead of borrowing money from the IMF and the ECB, which they basically create out of thin air, we create the funds ourselves. And that way we're not paying €7 billion in interest a year to someone else. We create our own internal currency, and we keep a grip on things. We can fund 75% of the current government spending with that, and that leaves us a euro surplus. I figure at least 8 billion a year.
How could you do that without leaving the euro?
Well, this is the whole thing. Everyone's looking at everything in black or white, and they've been discussing either staying with the euro or leaving the euro. But I'd say it's entirely possible to stay with the euro and also have our own internal only use currency. It's quite complicated, and I've put information about this on my
Okay, can I answer? Michael, on our point of view, this is nonsense. Michael, it belongs, if this started in German banks and French banks, they pressed the button, wired the money over to Ireland, and they sent far too much money in. And, you know, to get back to that lady's question, which wasn't answered earlier, negative equity is going to be a serious issue down the line, and we need to protect people in their homes. We need our Irish banks to go in and rescue people who cannot afford the mortgages because they had no choice. They had to buy houses, not speculators, not people who bought 3 or 4 properties in this country or abroad. People who just wanted a home and wanted to get on with their life. They need to be protected because there's an avalanche of this coming down the tracks. And what you need to do, to answer your question, is we need to go over to Europe and tell them, not go over like Enda Kenny's been doing for the last couple of weeks, and a merry dance and a glass of coffee and playing to the public. We need to go over and tell them strongly, we still have that card, and if we need to...
Okay, and what if they say no?
Well, we tell them.
What if they say no?
We will tell them, we can't.
What if they say no?
They will say no. We put a referendum to the people, and we say, well, this is what the people will say.
But what if they say no? What if they say no in Europe?
We will be the bold boy in the class, and we will tell them, we will bring down their euro. Their euro is not worked. The single currency system has not worked.
Okay.
Yes. It is immoral.
Any other questions? Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I have a question. The money comes from the EU and the IMF right now. It's agreed. Everybody thinks it's a bad idea. Who's thinking about it? The markets think it's a bad idea. That's because our bond rating keeps going down. Because they know 1.8 million working people cannot pay this debt. So we have to come up with a working alternative. Where else can we go to get the money? The problem with the EU money is that the time frame is too short. If we stick with the IMF half of the money, not that I'm wild about the IMF, and look at how much we need from Europe and see whether or not we can get a longer term loan from the Chinese. Right now they're swimming in money. They have too much of it in the dollar. They're worried about the strength of the dollar and the security of the dollar, which is on a little bit of the slide itself. There are alternative places to put it.
If we got a loan from the Chinese, though, it will be a real loan, whereas the loan from Europe, it seems, is more of a backup plan for them to avoid giving us a full-scale bailout. It'll just be restructured and restructured because they can't be seen to just give us a free handout. But I don't think that they actually expect this to be continued to be paid at the current rates.
Nobody is going to give us a free handout. Wherever we get the money from, if we take it, we are going to have to pay.
It depends, to come in here, it depends what we're paying off here. This private debt belongs to private banks and it belongs to bondholders. I know everybody's fed up with the word. That section we will give back to Europe, give back to where they belong. The running the country and the balance, the difference between our revenue and our expenditure, that is something we have to sort out. And that is something that we will need some money to sort out to ease the burden initially and get the country back rocking where it should be. We are in a great country. We have highly intelligent people and a mobile workforce, and we can do it. But what these parties are saying, Labour, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, are going to send us into no man's land for a decade. And it's time we stood up.
Okay. Could we have some of the highly intelligent people ask questions? Yeah, a highly intelligent person at the back there.
No, that's not me. What I wanted to ask you, we're talking about debt and Ireland's debts. Can we talk a moment about our assets regarding oil and gas reserves off the west coast of Ireland? And we have multi-billions of oil and gas. And where do you stand on, you were talking about going back to 1997, what about renegotiating the deal which was struck by corrupt politicians?
Absolutely, that deal has to be renegotiated. The licensing there is just unbelievable. The amount of money is going to Shell, and then the Irish people and the Irish state not getting very little or nothing of it. There was a complete sellout of the Irish people as far as I'm concerned.